In preparation for this Shabbat, the first Shabbat with a hybrid service here for Kabbalat Shabbat in the Mishkan, I began to reflect on where we've been. And I was remembering that Shabbat in March 2020, when we went into lockdown and we had no idea what we were doing. And our director of communications, Deanna Levy, put together some apparatus right there in the middle of the floor, held together with duct tape for real, and we just did the best we could. And this is what I said on that Shabbat Para, that first Shabbat of lockdown. As far as I know, this is the first time in Holy Blossom Temple's 163 years that we are closing our doors for services. This decision weighs very heavily on me. I'm the kind of rabbi who would say, not on my watch. There must be another way. Let's find it together. And yet, just before Shabbat, we announced that we will not be gathering for services or classes or programs or school or meetings. You've heard me say before that Holy Blossom Temple is open 365 days a year for prayer, just as the hospitals and the fire stations are open 365 days a year. We are open for spiritual emergencies. And yet the inconceivable became our reality. Like synagogues and houses of faith across the planet now, we are heeding the mitzvah, uvachartem b'chayim lema'an tichyeh. Choose life in order that you might live. And I spoke about the new anxieties and the uncertainties and the new vocabularies. And I admitted that I learned that week that I had never even known how to wash my hands properly. And then I told a story. And I think it's fitting, again, a year and a half later. It'll be heard with new ears. It'll be interpreted with new meaning. But I think it still does resonate, as the best folk tales and legends do in every age. This is the story about the wisest of kings, Melech Shlomo, the wise King Solomon. Once upon a time, he challenged one of his advisors. The king instructed the advisor to search for a ring that could turn a happy person sad and a sad person happy, a secure person anxious and an anxious person secure. So the advisor set out on the mission. He traveled far across the land of Israel, but to no avail. He returned to Jerusalem downtrodden and heavy-hearted, and he found himself stumbling through the marketplace until, among the hustle and the bustle, he noticed a man selling some old pieces of jewelry spread out on a threadbare rug. Desperate, the advisor told the merchant what he was seeking, a ring that can make a happy person sad and a sad person happy, a secure person anxious and an anxious person secure. The merchant smiled and presented a ring with an inscription, just 3 Hebrew words, Gam Ze Ya'avor. This too shall pass. A slow smile came across the advisor's face. He purchased the ring at once, thanked the merchant, and rushed off to the palace to present the ring to King Solomon himself. When the king, whose very name means peace and wholeness and completion and contentment, when he took one look at the ring, he nodded with approval and with humility. And according to the legend, King Solomon wore that ring every day of his rule, and for the rest of his days, even beyond. Some say it was the secret of his wisdom. Some say that understanding the truth of that message inscribed in the ring, Gam ze ya'avor, this too shall pass, is, in fact, one of the secrets of life itself. So I offer this story not as a simple Hallmark greeting, and not as a simple hashtag, which is the Hallmark greeting of the day. I offer it instead as a simple truth. That moment of first lockdown was a moment. It was a frightful moment, an uncertain moment, a moment that we confronted, a moment that we endured, and now that moment is past. And we have grown since then. The pandemic isn't over yet, God help us, but that moment of first shock and first unknowns is behind us now. The race to create the vaccine was won. The race to gain access to the vaccine in Canada is now fulfilled. Thank God. And the one thing we know to be sure, Gam ze ya'avor, this too shall pass, because things change. And then they change again. We change. And then we change again. Tomorrow night, we will welcome the new moon. I hope it'll be a clear night and we can look for it and see it with our own eyes. In the dark sky, we will witness just that first sliver of the moon that announces the arrival of the month of Elul. For rabbis, it's the most daunting new moon of all, because it's the last year, the last month of the year 5781, and anticipates the new year to come. Elul calls for reflection and inspection. Each morning at our Shacharit services, which are now hybrid, as Shabbat services are hybrid, we will fulfill the mitzvah to hear the sound of the shofar, calling us to wake up from our slumber, calling us to take account of where we have been, to see with new eyes our own lives and the role we wish to play in this broken world of ours. On this Shabbat Mevarchim, we announce the coming of the new moon, which announces the coming of the new year, 5782. May it be a year of good health and restoration for us all. Shabbat Shalom.